So today we are doing some installation guidance on replacing this standard Supercharger charge cooler radiator for our Type 1 Wraptor Performance charge cooler radiator. And this Type 1 goes on to all Supercharged Jaguar F-Type, Jaguar XF, that's the X250 shape Supercharged models, the Jaguar XK, that's the X150 shape Supercharged models, and also the Jaguar XJ Supercharged models, X351 shape. So the process of installation can differ depending on what model and model year and country of origin the car is, and so on. Whether it's been modified or standard, or whether it's been a part before. This is just some brief guidance for you guys to see kind of what is involved with the installation. I would say out of all the models, the F-Type is probably the hardest one to do. It's a little bit more involved, it's got a few more components in the way and stuff. So I'm just going to demonstrate it on this F-Type. First job, as per usual on all the Jags, is front bumper removal. Right, so there's the front bumper removed. I like to protect the headlamps with a bit of tape because the bumper kind of slots over them and it is easy to scratch them. So I advise doing that. We can see this is the charge cooler radiator here, very first radiator in the stack here. On the F-Type you've got these two intake cones in the way that will remove temporarily, and you've also got this auxiliary radiator, and you have like this on some of the XKs as well, and it lies flat, so we're going to remove that out of the way to gain better access. But I don't know if you can see this. In fact, I'll grab a torch. But it gathers a lot of debris and rubbish in there, so it's a good opportunity to clean that lower radiator out. So to remove the bumper on this Jag and many others, you'll have a row of bolts along the top, various bolts in a row along the bottom. You'll have some in the inner wheel arch areas. F-Type's quite easy to get to, it's just there. Others you'll actually have to remove the wheel arch or partially remove it to access bolts in the wheel arch. And then you've got on the F-Type a couple there which are quite obviously seen. We've also got, typically on the left hand side of the car, the electrical plugs to the bumper, and typically on the right hand side of the car, if you have headlamp washers built into the bumper, you'll have a washer pipe you can disconnect and blank off so it doesn't leak out everywhere whilst we're working on it. Okay, so I'm going to drain and remove this flat auxiliary radiator. As you can see, there's already all sorts of rubbish falling out, and there's still more in there yet. Oh, clip flew off. I will go and retrieve that. I'm going to drain and remove this little flat auxiliary radiator here. I'm then going to drain the charge cooler radiator, and then I'm actually going to drain the main engine radiator as well. There's actually a drain point underneath for that one. To empty the system as much as possible. That's going to allow me to then bleed the cooling system using a vacuum bleeder, which is much easier. But you don't have to do it that way. You can just see what coolant comes out by removing the minimum amount of things you need to, and then bleed it the old school way by running up the engine up to temperature, slacking in all the bleed points and waiting for the fluid to come out like that. But I'm just trying to do it efficiently. So anyway, here goes. I didn't get soaked, so that's a good start. Right, so we've removed the air intake trumpets
And these little bit of plastic here and here, I've kept them each side of the car so I know where they go, and also removed these bits here. That is attached to that just by 4 screws. It doesn't need to come off, but you may as well undo them and clean out all this rubbish. I'll probably gently just pull it off with my hand, although I don't fancy touching that actually. And then hose it through. You want to be gentle with it, we don't want to bend all these little fins over. Remove that piece that just sits below it and the little foam that sits along the slam panel. And that's it really to access the charge cooler radiator. Now to remove this charge cooler radiator, we're going to unclip this little cooler here. We've got 3 rubber hoses along the left hand side to undo, and the coolant pump to unbolt. And then the radiator itself is held to the other radiators just via 2 bolts, so one there at the bottom and one this side at the bottom, hidden. With the pump out the way you'll be able to see it, and then it's just got a tab each side at the top, and that's it. That's how to remove it. So I'm going to pull the pipes off now and drain it. Some of the pipes can be sticky. Put something in there and gently prise it around, but obviously don't break any plastic and do not pierce any of the pipes. They can get a bit stuck on over time, these pipes. Oh. That one was pretty stuck indeed. Okay, so with the bolts and all the pipes and the pump removed, slide downwards and out the bottom. There we are. It will probably leak more fluid, so have a container ready. There we are. And there's our old cooler. There's the old cooler removed and our new one. Now it's got all the bracketry there ready, but it hasn't got the holes pre-drilled because each one is bespoke handmade, so we'll let you carefully measure and drill holes where relevant for your particular model. We're drilling into the brackets only and definitely not into the tanks. Okay, but before we go ahead and do that, I'm going to have a sweep up and clean up all that mess, because who likes to work in mess, eh? Okay, so it's time to carefully measure and drill the holes where relevant. On this car, here are the mounting points for the charge cooler. The bolts go through the charge cooler brackets and this air conditioning radiator brackets, straight through them both, and hold it to the main engine radiator. So obviously with the bolts removed, this wants to fall down, so I've put the bolts back in. Okay, so the aircon rad is where it should be. I've also put some white marks in line with the bolts, so now I'm going to slot this radiator in place, and then I'll mark on these brackets with a pen a mark that's in line with that one. Okay, so then we know, and that one, how far left and right to drill the holes. Now the top of this bracket here basically butts up to the top of this plastic just there. Okay, so once we've got our mark of how far left and right to do the hole, we'll measure from there to there, which looks like about 11 or 12 millimeters to me, and then mark 11 or 12 millimeters down, and that's exactly where to drill our holes. We also need one hole in this bracket here to hold the water pump on, and then if you have this pipe, not all of them do, then a couple of, I find 6.5mm holes or 7mm holes, sorry, to hold the little clips that hold that pipe on. Okay, so let's slot it into place. So these top brackets slide in sort of a tongue and groove plastic bracket on the main engine radiator. Carefully offer it up without trying to knock it into everything and start bending the fins over and stuff. That's not going to help with our cooling. If you do mark it slightly, it's not the end of the world, but try not to, hey? Looks like it's going to fit left and right. Right, so as you can see, I've offered it up and positioned it up, down, left and right where I want it, and I've made a mark there that's in line with that white mark there. Okay, so that's how far left and right to do it. Like I said, we'd measure from the top of there to the centre of the bolt, which is about 12mm. So 12mm down from there is there. So we will drill our hole there. If you're unsure, it's much better to measure twice, drill once, because once you've drilled it, well, that's it really, isn't it? Now the bolts are 6mm diameter in thread, but I generally go a little bit larger, 7 or even 8mm if you want. That means you've got a little bit of wiggle room, a little bit of forgiveness, but as you can see, they've got quite a large captive washer on there, so it's not like the bolt's going to pull through. So although it's a 6mm hole, I'd probably drill it to 7, maybe 8mm. That'll make it easier installation for you. Right, so there's our holes drilled. It's a bit nicer and easier if you support the bracket with a block of wood behind it. So now we'll get it bolted onto the car. So we have an example of washers used from factory to get the bumper to level with the bonnet. So you got one rather rusty washer this side and 4 on this side. And that's from factory, believe it or not. What they do to try and line up the body panels. It would be nice if they used washers that didn't go rusty at least, wouldn't it? But there we are. Right. So there's our radiator charge cooler in place. We've reconnected all the pipes, clipped our other pipe in there, and then what is important is if you are not running the separate header tank for this system, then you need to install one of the blanks supplied in the kit there and tighten it with a Jubilee clip. Now it's going back together, we've got to remount our lower radiator that lays flat, and it'll attach via these 2 fixings here. So again, I've offered it up, and this lip here basically sits against this edge, and then mark with a pen where the holes need to be, and you can nut and bolt it, but I like to drill a little pilot hole like this and then use a self-tapping screw. The metal's thick enough where the screw does bite into it very well. It won't, you know, pull out as long as you drill the appropriate size hole for the screw you are using, and that's perfectly sufficient to secure that little radiator onto there. So we installed the air intake cones first, and then mounted our lower flat auxiliary radiator. So the system's now under pressure. Check for any leaks. A good close look at all the pipe work, etc. And this one is all good. Once that's done, obviously we'll reinstall these parts in reverse order of removal, and we are all done. Well, thanks for watching our little installation guidance on our Wraptor Uprated Type 1 charge cooler. I hope you find it interesting and useful. Please do remember to like, subscribe, share, tag your friends and all that jazz, because it does help. Thank you very much. Also follow our other projects. So we've got some special build cars that we've done on YouTube, and there's also other installation videos to come of some of the other parts that we do. Take care and keep jagging. Thanks.